It's my job here this afternoon to introduce our new dean and executive vice president, Dr. Kenneth Polonsky. You all know about Kenneth's background, and so rather than do the usual introduction of telling you where he went to college and medical school and all his honors and professional career, which I think you know all about, I thought I'd just reflect a little bit on the meaning of this appointment, because I think this is a very important moment for the Biological Science Division, the Pritzker School of Medicine, the Medical Center, and therefore for the University of Chicago. I think we all realize, and really the reason that we're all here is because we realize the distinctiveness of the University of Chicago and its commitment to inquiry, its commitment to excellence throughout everything that it does. And I think we likewise realize that here in the BSD, the Pritzker School, and the Medical Center, we really have three central missions of research, education, and clinical care, and that because this is the University of Chicago, that every one of these has to be at the highest level, and that we cannot be complacent about where we are. We cannot be complacent with anything other than truly outstanding research, outstanding education at all levels, and outstanding clinical care. And that means not only outstanding clinical care by physicians who see patients, but outstanding experience throughout the clinical enterprise. And right now we're at a moment where I think we can see a great possibility of moving forward on all of these fronts. When we began this search, and there are members of the search committee here who know this, that there were really three key things that we believed we needed to find in a leader for this entire enterprise. The first being that we would find somebody who could represent the values of the University of Chicago, the values of the BSD and the Pritzker School of Medicine, and represent them in an ongoing and powerful way so that everything we did was in service of the values of the university and in service of the values of the faculty of the university. The second is that this is a complex enterprise. It's a complex enterprise with multiple missions. We are organized in a way that's, in fact, purposefully complex because we believe there's extra value in this complexity. But managing that complexity is not so simple, so that we needed somebody who appreciated both intellectually and from a capacity for leadership of a complex organization how to realize these values through this complex organization. And that meant someone who understood the importance of building a team, empowering that team, making a coherent team, having the buy-in of the faculty of the university, faculty of the BSD for the direction of the area. And the third thing was the integration of the BSD and the medical school and the medical center with the university as a whole. This is a key part of the university. Its values need to reflect those values of the university as a whole. Its work is an important component. Biological sciences, medicine, the delivery of health care are all key parts of what we do. But there are many ways in which that connects to the rest of the university. And it was very important to have somebody who understood the university and could make and live and build those connections with all of you. And the search committee, the faculty search committee, and the trustees who were involved, and I, were uniformly enthusiastic that Kenneth, who not only fulfilled those qualities in a very powerful way, but of course had been at the university for so long and understood the university very well, was just a perfect candidate to be the leader of this area. And so we are at this moment where I think what we need to understand is that we're in a moment of enormous possibility. And that possibility is going to be realized through leadership, but it's also going to be realized through collaboration, and it's going to be realized through the work, not only of the leadership, but through the work of the faculty of the university. And what I promise you from the point of view of the university is the full commitment and support of the university for your efforts, for Kenneth Polonsky's work, and that I just want to express the enormous confidence that I have personally and that everybody who has been involved in this has in Dr. Polonsky as a leader for this area. So with that, let me give you Dr. Polonsky.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you very much, Bob, and I'm obviously very honored to have had this confidence placed in me by you, search committee, and by the university. So I've been in the job for almost 2 weeks. Tomorrow will be the 2-week anniversary, and it does require some adjustment. So the first thing is that I have to deal with all of these dean jokes, and I'm sure that many of them, but I'll go over some of them. So I think you all know that there is only one letter difference between dean and dead. There's that one. Then there's the story of the lady who calls the medical school and says, I want to speak to somebody no lower than the dean. And the answer is, well, we don't have anybody lower than the dean over here. And then there's the other one where the president of the university, his job is to speak for the university. The job of the faculty is to think for the university. And the job of the dean is to prevent anybody from thinking and talking or speaking. So anyway, I think I'll probably get over those. The search committee was really very careful in what they did. I think the one issue that they were most careful about, sure that I was really in tune with the culture and the ambiance of the University of Chicago. And so they wanted to know, and I've said this before, whether I bled maroon. And, at first I didn't quite know what that meant because maroon didn't seem to be the best color from my perspective for blood. Pink would be better. But at first I thought maybe they wanted somebody who's sickly, who's going to be a patient as well, and so on. But it did cause me to reflect on all of the connections that my family and I have with the university, and my wife Lydia is here. So, as you know, I was a faculty member here for about 21 years. Lydia graduated to a master's degree in math education from the education department at the University of Chicago when there still was one, and then was a teacher at the lab school for many years, and all of our 3 children went to the lab school. Our daughter Tammy graduated from the medical school, and her husband Eric graduated from the business school, and their son Jonah is now back at the lab school. Our son Jonathan graduated from the business school, and his wife, Mandy, is a graduate of the Harris School of Public Policy. And then Eric's mother, Vanya Wang, was a teacher at the lab school, taught chorus for many, many years. Many of you will have had her as a teacher. Your children will have had her as a teacher. So I think that we do have the credentials to be part of the University of Chicago, and obviously the search committee was convinced of that. But at a more personal level, I do actually owe everything that has happened in my career to the training that I received here. I came as a fellow in 1978 to work with Arthur Rubinstein, and it's really due to Arthur and then Don Steiner, who's at the back, the late Howard Tager, and then Graham Bell, who's really been a spectacular colleague and friend and collaborator for many years that taught me how to do science. I came from South Africa without a scientific background, and whatever I've been able to accomplish in science has been due to what I learned at the University of Chicago. But in addition to that, there was an important message there because this was a unique group of people which was composed of basic scientists and clinicians and clinical scientists who were able to work together and do translational research that before it was a popular thing to do. So this was, in the late 70s, the early 80s was when it started. Graham came a little later. And we figured out that if clinicians and basic scientists work together on a common problem from different aspects, there would be a very good outcome. And so that is certainly a theme that I'm going to enlarge upon, and has been a very important influence in what I've done, and has now become a norm of the way in which science is performed. I also am very mindful of the fact that we only are here by virtue of many people who came before us and have built up this outstanding institution. And most recently, I'd really like to compliment Everett Vokes on the job that he did in an interim position in the last year. It was extraordinarily challenging situation, and obviously the many people that helped him. And also Jim Madeira, who I think made very many valuable contributions to the medical school, and certainly the structure that we have and the new buildings, the new hospital. He deserves a lot of credit for that, so I'm very appreciative of those efforts. Now, one of the things that you may have noticed is that the title that I have, which is Dean's and then Executive Vice President for Medical Affairs, is somewhat different than what Jim had. He had the title of CEO. And that was done with intent. I requested that from Bob and from Rod Goldstein, who's the chair of the UCMC board. And there was the intent behind that was to really indicate that this is a university position, that I'm not a CEO, that I'm a faculty member of the university, that I report to the president of the university, and that I see myself as being a member of the faculty, and hopefully I will be able to maintain a lab. Graham is trying to help me in that regard, and we'll see how successful his efforts are. I'll certainly be going to do my very best. But I do feel very strongly that this is an academic position as well as an administrative position, and I will do everything I can to ensure that I pay a lot of attention to the academic missions. We have very outstanding people running the hospital. Clearly, I'll be involved in that. But I certainly don't intend to do that on a day-to-day basis, and I hope that there will be time. I'm planning that there will be time to devote to oversight of research, participate in research, as well as in education. Now, what I'd like to do in the next couple of minutes is just give you some general priorities that I think we need to focus on as we move forward, and there will be many other opportunities to talk about detailed specifics. But the first issue that I'd like to raise is that I think we do need to spend a lot of time focusing on human capital as our most precious resource. So I do firmly believe that our single biggest determinant of success will be our ability to recruit and retain highly trained and accomplished and hardworking faculty and staff. I think the staff are clearly very important, not only in the hospital, but particularly in the hospital. And there are a number of simple things that I certainly intend to follow, that I always have tried to do, which is things like honor commitments, not make any commitments unless we really have the resources and are confident that the resources are going to be there, to treat people fairly, to do the right thing, to say what we mean and mean what we say, and really focus on human capital as a very precious part of everything that we do. Now, in addition to that, we obviously do have three missions, and I think that two of them are really obvious, which is the research scholarship mission. It's very central to the University of Chicago. The creation of new important knowledge that has a significant impact is going to continue to remain a central focus, and I certainly wouldn't be here if I didn't believe that very fervently. Education and career development are also very central. And everybody must participate in the educational mission. So that's another theme that's going to come across, is that one of the prices of admission at the University of Chicago is that everybody has to participate in education. Now, the patient care mission is obviously a more recent one, and I think it does deserve some discussion because I'm not sure that everybody is exactly on the same page about the importance of the patient care mission. And I view it as absolutely central and equally important to the other two. For a number of reasons. First of all, it's becoming increasingly important for research. And I think we know, and I'm going to come back to this in a little while again, that human investigation or investigation in humans is now becoming a very central element of research, where it was not 10 or 20 years ago. So it's central to our research mission. Obviously, it's central to our educational mission, and we can't we can't conduct an outstanding educational program if the quality of the patient care is not outstanding. We have an obligation to the community to provide them with high-quality care. And this is extremely important and encompasses both the community immediately surrounding us in the primary service area, but also the broader Chicago community. And I think it's very clear, experience all over the country, is that if the community does not value a medical school, then the medical school is always in serious trouble. And in order to continue to earn their loyalty and commitment to us, one of the things that we have to provide is high-quality patient care. So it ties us to the community in many, many important ways. And then the final thing, at least under current circumstances, and things may change in the future, is that it is the essential financial engine of our research and educational missions. And at least at the moment, it's the only one that's profitable. So we have to be able to make that work, and we have to be able to do that in a very careful way. I'm not naive about the difficulties that we face in terms of competition and other difficulties in the Chicago area, but I have a great faith in the faculty and the administrative staff and the leadership in the hospital that if we really put our minds to it, if we're well organized, that we will be able to overcome and meet these challenges. I'd also like to talk a little bit more detail about research. The research enterprise must have a number of elements. So basic research is from my own personal experience, is still the foundation on which everything else is built. And so there will be a very strong commitment to basic research. Knowledge for knowledge's sake, even if people are not interested in translational applications to human health, if they're outstanding investigators, we need to support them, and we will. But in this day and age, if one looks at our competitors and our peer institutions, outstanding basic research is not sufficient. And we need to build on that foundation other elements of the research enterprise. So disease-oriented laboratory research, that includes translational research, flourishes over here, and there are many examples. The Cancer Center, the Diabetes Center, a whole host of others, basic immunology that translates into autoimmune diseases, etc. So that needs to continue to be valued and supported. And then patient-oriented research, something that is near and dear to my heart, because fundamentally most of the work that I've done in my career has been in patients, and it is an area that we can excel in, and I think do excel in many different ways, but we need to continue to maintain and expand the infrastructure that we have through the Institute of Translational Medicine and other mechanisms to ensure that there is an outstanding infrastructure to do human investigation here. And then finally, community-based research, which has really become a very important priority. And I think that we are very well positioned to think about how we should reinvent the healthcare system in an area that is underserved traditionally, make healthcare more accessible to people who have not had access previously, improve the cost effectiveness and the efficiency of healthcare delivery, and come up with innovative new ideas that in a world of constrained resources, we are still going to be able to provide access in an affordable way to people who have not previously had access. Now, what I think the University of Chicago offers, and which is one of the things that appeal to me about this position, is that because of our administrative structure and because of the way we are a relatively compact institution, it's not too big, it's not too small, we should be able to integrate these 4 areas of research better than most places can. Now, in addition to that, and we'll come back to this as well, we have an absolutely world-class university just across the street. And there are huge additional opportunities for collaboration with the Central University to build on our research enterprise. Now, one other issue that I'm trying to come to grips with, and Martin Feeder and I had a long discussion today, and I've been sent a lot of promotion cases, is the appointment and promotion process. And that's clearly a very, very important issue. It's very central to everything that we do. So the first thing that I think we need to be sure about is that we have clear and concise guidelines. And we're part of the way there. I think that there is room to make things clearer and to make them more concise. We need to provide faculty with feedback on their performance at regular intervals. The standard must be high, but it's very important that people be told, this is where you're doing well, this is where you're not doing so well, this is where we need you to improve, so that at least they have a very clear understanding of what the expectations are. The criteria for promotion must be easy to understand. The concepts are really not that complicated, and we need to try and implement them in a fair way. It's not always easy, as we know. There are often cases that trouble us a lot, and sometimes it's obvious what should happen. Sometimes it's not, but we need to continue to try and be as fair as possible. And the academic tracks must facilitate and not restrict career development, and they must allow the faculty to select diverse activities and recognize diverse accomplishments. And again, I think that we're doing reasonably well in that regard, but I do believe that there are ways in which we can improve and ways in which we can make this easier for the faculty, and I think that everyone will benefit from that. I think we all know that this is a relatively small medical school, that we have a finite number of resources, and so that focus and priority setting is going to be very important. And what I hope to do in the near future, and I'll give you a framework for thought of how we may go about this, is to give at least a framework of how we may attack this. Now, you know, most of the time when strategic planning is done, it's a sort of a monumental exercise. Hundreds of people of the faculty literally are involved. Everybody gets down on paper what their own wish list is. You put it all together. It's completely overwhelming and unaffordable. We did this at Washington University, I've told people, and it cost about $1 billion. And then we took it to the Board of Trustees, and they were just horrified. They said, you know, you guys are out of your minds. Just, you know, go back, rework this, and come back with a more realistic plan. So I actually was pretty impressed with the AIMS process that Jim Madera set up some years ago, and then, as you know, there was AIMS 1 and AIMS 2. And I think that we do need to build upon them. So the principle that I would like to put forward is that instead of coming up with an overwhelming plan that is going to keep us going for the next 5 or 10 years, we build upon certain themes in an incremental way, maybe on an annual basis, in which we set ourselves realistic targets that are going to be affordable, we complete them, and then we go on to the next one. And we keep a running total of where we are, and then figure out how to go forward. So I don't quite know why this is not going. So we may have to figure this out. So this is a proposal for discussion. Obviously, we're not going to discuss it here, although we'll have time for questions. But what I hope to do through the Faculty Advisory Council and other faculty bodies is get some feedback on whether these strategic goals are reasonable. And what I've put down is just some initial thoughts which are meant to start discussion. So what I would say is that the first goal should be to make the BSD, Pritzker and UCMC a more collegial, interesting and supportive place to work for faculty and staff. And that we should re-examine the guidelines for a promotion and appointment to ensure that they are simple and concise and serve the needs of the faculty in the institution. And I'm not talking about completely rewriting them or starting from scratch, by no means. But what modifications could we make to make things easier and more straightforward for our faculty? We need to ensure that we foster a welcoming environment for women and underrepresented minorities. And I think that we do have some opportunities to do work in this area. We should be sure that there are mentoring programs, particularly for junior faculty. And there clearly are some. I'm not sure that they are consistent across all departments, but I think we need to establish best practices so that all junior faculty get some level of mentoring and career advice. And then we need to improve the culture and work environment for staff in the BSD, Pritzker, and in the UCMC. And there's a lot of evidence that we have that there is work to be done in that regard. And I know that Ken Sharrigan and Carolyn Wilson are paying a lot of attention to that, and that needs to go forward. So that would be the first goal. The second would be to enhance our position as a world-class research institution. We've already spoken about the forms of research that we need to do, but we need to identify and support areas of excellence. So we're not going to be able to be outstanding at everything. There are certain things that we have to be outstanding at. There are certain things that by virtue of tradition and history we are outstanding at. Identify them, and then we need to identify novel areas that we may not be that good at the moment, but we're going to invest in. And clearly this has to be a process in which the faculty have a major level of participation, and that's my intention. I think we should re-examine our organizational structure. So we do have a certain number of departments in basic science departments. We have committees. That may be the optimal way in which we should organize ourselves. I actually don't know the answer, but I think that we should at least look at it. We need to promote interactions across disciplines. I've spoken about that, and we are very well positioned to be able to do that. The human as the experimental model, I think, is extremely important. There's no question that the NIH is expecting us to do more human investigation. The advance in technologies, genomics, imaging, proteomics, etc., allow us to do much more sophisticated research in humans. And our faculty are not going to be able to do world-class research unless they have access to core facilities and enabling technologies that are state-of-the-art. The third goal should be to restore UCMC to a leadership position in the Chicago area and enhance its national reputation as a center of excellence. And I think there are a number of things that we have to do. We've already had a number of discussions amongst the clinical chiefs and the leadership of the hospital to create a multispecialty group practice. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm for that and a lot of understanding that this is very important for us at this stage. I think everyone whom I've met has told me that we need to improve the patient experience and physician satisfaction with the way things operate at this medical center. So that has to be a very high priority. We need to identify and invest in areas targeted for growth, just as we will do in science. And in clinical medicine, it's much easier. There are certain common diseases. You have to be outstanding at them if you want to be successful, and we need to do that. For any of you who haven't realized, we have a beautiful new hospital that is looming up on the horizon over here. It's closer than the horizon. And we have to prepare for that, which we're doing, but we have to be sure that when it opens, it's going to be a destination for very high-quality healthcare that focuses on complex conditions, which is really where we need to operate. And then we need to improve the operational efficiency to prepare for healthcare reform. That's what healthcare reform is going to be all about. So goal 4 was to improve our educational programs broadly so that we can attract the most competitive students and postgraduate trainees. And what I think we need to be sure about, so that's number 4. There we go. Okay. So the MD PhD program, I think, has to be a very high priority. I was really disappointed and sort of surprised at the state that we're in at the moment with the MD PhD program. That is a way in which we will be judged as an academic institution. The impact of, at the moment, we have 64 MD PhD students on campus here. We certainly need to be at least at that level and potentially go up to a higher number. But the impact that the MD PhD students have on the intellectual and the academic and the research at this institution is incalculable. And so we need to be absolutely certain that we can attract the very best MD PhD students, and we need to redo that. We need to reinvent that program in whatever way it needs to be reinvented to be able to do that. We have to recruit women and underrepresented minorities to our training programs, and we need to have an educational infrastructure that is competitive with our peers. The residency programs are obviously critical because it is a portal of entry into the institution. So we need to look at the quality and diversity of the clinical training. We need to enhance the programs by being sure the residents, not a traditional venue in all residencies. In fact, it's interesting that internal medicine does not have a requirement for research. But there's no question that if you can offer a really good research opportunity for medicine residents, it's a very big attractant for people to come. And then global health programs are very important. We have a number of partnerships, and those need to be evaluated as well. So goal 5 is to promote programs of excellence to engage and serve local, regional, and global communities. We've spoken about that already. We do have an urban health initiative, which I think has enormous potential. I think that there is opportunity for it to be integrated more closely with our other missions, our research, our education, but the job that Eric Whitaker and his colleagues have done to set up what I think is a terrific infrastructure, both to help underserved people in the community, but also to do education and research, has enormous potential, and we need to build on that. And then there are a number of programs, and Fumio Lapadi has already, I think, been 2 or 3 times to tell me how important this is, and I'm convinced about it. I'm from South Africa, so you don't have to convince me that global programs are very important, and we need to lead in that area. I've spoken about strengthening programs with the university, and I haven't listed all of the opportunities, but you know that they are many and varied, from the law school to social sciences to Argonne. This university is an absolutely spectacular place, and we should take advantage in a better way than I think we have to be able to interact closely. And then finally, we need to develop a sustainable financial plan. This is not easy. I think most institutions are very reactive rather than proactive in sort of thinking about the finances. And we need to have guidelines and an understanding of, what proportion of our resources need to be invested in departments, what proportion need to be kept back for reserves, what proportion needs to be invested in the hospital. And this will give us a discipline and really a realistic insight into what we can and can't do. And we have this is obviously a bastion of economics, and we have superb financial analysis here, and we should be able to come up with something that is really unusual and I think very, very helpful. So finally then, I'd like to just speak 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we'll have time for questions. I'd like to just return to the point that I made at the beginning, which is that it really is all about the people. And so that if we can recruit outstanding faculty and staff, and encourage them to work very hard, I'm very confident that we'll do very well. And I can tell you that over the years, starting over here, I was never ever disappointed by the collective wisdom and input of the faculty. And I always take that input very seriously. I intend to listen very carefully and get broad faculty input. And then I think we do need to be somewhat bold. So you all know the quote from Daniel Burnham, the architect and urban planner, who played such a role in making our city as beautiful as it is. Make no little plans. They have no magic to stir men's blood, and probably themselves will not be realized. Make big plans, aim high in hope and in work. So hopefully we'll get some of that. We have to worry about our resources, but I think that we will have enough to be able to be bold. And I think we do have an obligation to one another, to our patients, to the students, to our community, to raise the position of the biological and medical sciences in this institution, which is an outstanding one, so that together we can achieve the highest levels of both discovery, education, and clinical care. So I'm really delighted to be here. It's a wonderful thing for both me and Lydia and for our family, and it's been a terrific thing to renew acquaintance of people whom we've known for many decades, and also to make new friends, and I'm really looking forward to an exciting time. So I think we do have time for questions, and I'll be happy to entertain any. Thank you.
I would love to hear from you is that you're thinking about investing in core facilities, which I think is at the center of our research experience at the moment.
Yeah.
You mentioned it briefly in your introduction, and I wondered if you could speak a little bit more to that.
Yeah. So, I believe that it is central. There is a research advisory committee, as you know, and Conrad Gilliam seems to be leading that in a very able way, and I know that they've been working on this, and I'm eager to hear the input, but we clearly need to look at that in a significant way. And, some of the core resources will be for basic research, and obviously gene sequencing and gene expression arrays, proteomics facilities, and I know you have some of all of those. I don't have a good sense of how well they work. But then more broadly, infrastructure for human investigation, infrastructure for community-based research. I think we need to have infrastructure that will deal with all of these things. So, I don't have specific plans at this point, but I certainly view it as extraordinarily important. And it's also very cost-effective. What we found, probably know that I was the head of the CTSA at Washington University, and what we were able to do was co-invest with other centers in core resources. So, for example, we had a joint proteomics core facility with the Cancer Center. And each of the units alone did not have the resources to make this really world-class. You know how much these mass spectrometers cost, and to keep them current is almost impossible. But the resources of the two centers together with central resources from the medical school, gave us a really outstanding resource. Similarly with the biobank, which is another critical element. So we need to look at this in a better way. I certainly hope that we will be able to sort of get a lot of the NIH centers to collaborate on some of these efforts, because that's the best way in which we'll be able to do it, and then broaden everything for the entire faculty to have access. Yeah, Hans. Yeah. Yeah.
And why is that so important? Because some of the best students will not even apply to a program that offers as few slots as we have. And
yeah.
I know names actually of those. They'll go to other programs and not even apply here.
Yeah.
And I think we can later on, when we excel and really can show how good the program is, then we can also get the support from NIH.
Yeah.
But I think there has to be a pre-investment in
right.
that.
No, and we understand that. There's a document that we've looked at, and there is certainly going to be investment in that, and it will be a high priority. So thank you for the comments.
So one of the things you mentioned was educational infrastructure, and as you know, I'm sure, is that the medical schools put in place a new curriculum, the Pritzker Initiative. Currently, there's a huge mismatch between the curriculum and the way it's designed and the facilities. Is there how high a priority is it to provide better educational facilities for medical school?
Yeah. It's a very high priority. I haven't heard specifics. Holly has alerted me to some of these issues, but we will look at them very carefully. And just as we have to have infrastructure to do research, we're going to have state-of-the-art infrastructure for education. So it has to be an extremely high priority, and it will be. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry, no, it's
Yeah.
better, yeah. You didn't talk about undergraduates specifically, and we're at a university. They're an important part of our community.
Yeah.
Could you speak to the BSD's undergraduate mission?
I wasn't trying to be, I certainly wasn't trying to omit anything, and I just didn't have the time to be comprehensive. I was trying to keep it relatively short. But clearly I understand that this is one of the unique aspects of the way the University of Chicago Medical School is structured, and undergraduate education is equally important to postgraduate and medical school education. So, again, specific issues have not yet crossed my desk, but it's clearly it's on my radar screen, and we're not going to neglect that. Okay? Yeah, Janet.
Everybody wants to get to the food in the back, but there is a certain clash and tension between some of the goals of trying to deal with complex care in the hospital and trying to do first-rate community outreach and research. And we had the experience a year and a half ago, which was described today when women scientists in the division got together about the closing of certain clinical programs because they were financially a drain on the resources, at the same time really undercutting the research that a number of the faculty were doing. And I think that tension has got to be addressed so that faculty don't find the programs that they've developed are, if you will, destroyed because they're not part of the hospital mission.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, and I resonate with it. Obviously we are going to have to make decisions, and some of them will be at least influenced by the finances of what we can afford. So again, I don't know the specifics of the examples that you're talking about. There is a certain finite amount of money, and we're going to have to make choices of what do we invest in. So I can't say now that we're going to keep open everything. We're going to have to make decisions. Some things will stay open, some things will close. But at least we'll try and do it with broad input and try and make it as informed as possible. Obviously I do have the responsibility of finally making a decision, but it's going to be a very informed one. The community outreach and the community-based research is very important. And I don't think it's actually as much in conflict with the very complex care as it appears at first glance. Again, I had an opportunity at Barnes Hospital to participate in a program, so I never thought that I would be doing this because, the sort of research that I do, I work with mice and with humans and sort of proof of concept experiments. But what we found is that, so we had a similar hospital with very complicated patients, it's in a neighborhood that's not dissimilar to this, not a lot of community resources, and people, are very needy in terms of help. So what we determined was that the readmission rate to the hospital was just extraordinarily high. Depending on which patient population you looked at, it was in some cases over 30% within 30 days. And the key to this was that the community resources were not there. So I think that it is essential when we have patients who have very complicated medical and other conditions that when they get discharged from the hospital, we pay attention to what resources are available in the community, because otherwise they're just going to be back within a very short period of time, and that's not good for anyone, and particularly with the sort of reimbursement systems that are being contemplated under healthcare reform. It's not going to be a feasible thing. So I do actually think that there is a much closer connection between delivering good, complicated care on the inpatient side and also being able to help people find the appropriate community resource that they can stay out of the hospital and can see primary care physicians, etc., in the community and not have to come back. So, I do know about these issues. I'm very sensitive to them. I wish that we'd be able to support every worthy cause and every worthy idea. There'll be some decision-making and prioritizing, but, I do resonate with what you say. Thanks. Yeah.
I think part of the tension in the question that the previous speaker asked about was that medicine has changed, and there are really two parts to what people need to learn, and one of them is the inpatient care, which is hospital-based and which we have done very well with, and the other, though, is outpatient. Many of our graduates, in fact, most of our graduates, are going to be working primarily in outpatient settings.
Right.
And even the care that we are giving that's very sophisticated, in many cases, particularly in surgery, actually is going towards less hospital resources and more technical things that can be done in the office. Surgeries that we used to do and have patients stay in the hospital for weeks now are done as an outpatient with an endoscope and they go home, or in the doctor's office.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm asking is that when you're allocating the resources, don't forget that the medical school and the residency training all need exposure to that really important area. And it doesn't necessarily need to be on campus, but please don't forget about that in your allocation of resources.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the comment, and I am well aware of it, and it is very important. I totally agree, and it's a requirement. I'm most familiar with the medicine residencies. I mean, it's a requirement. You can't be accredited by the RRC if you don't offer outstanding training in an outpatient setting. So you clearly have to do that. Yeah.
Ken, my name is Mike LaBarbera. With all due respect, sir, I think you've set your sights too low. What you've talked about is focusing our attention on human health care, and it would be rather like the physical sciences deciding that they were going to put all their energy into wind power. We are a division of biological sciences. There's a lot more scope in biology than just humans. We're just one species out of 3,000 mammals. I'm one, and my kids are too. I think they're important, but there is a lot more scope. I'd like to see us span our attention from ecology and evolutionary biology to human health care. I'd like to see attention on the educational front, not only to the medical school and to the MD PhD program, but to graduate mentorship. It's our responsibility to turn out the scientists in the next generation. And as someone else said, to undergraduate education. So I would hope that you would actually raise your sights.
Right. So I don't know, maybe I misspoke. I thought that I had said that basic science was the fundamental on which everything else is built. Clearly that is the case here. It's going to continue to be the case. I think that some of these other elements are less well done. That's not to say that we don't invest in basic science. I think that human investigation is something that needs a significant amount of work in addition to the basic science. So the commitment to basic science is going to be there. I think that fundamental to this medical school are these outstanding basic science departments that we have. Ecology and evolution is one, and they have been and they will continue to be supported. I take great pride in the fact that that is one of the finest departments in the country, if not the finest. So we have to continue to do that. So I'm in complete agreement. Maybe it was misinterpreted what I said, but I certainly wasn't in any way saying that this is just a medical enterprise. Good. Well, this is more like the University of Chicago. I thought I was going to get a lot of questions like that. All right. Well, if there are no further questions, there's food at the back. Thank you.